sort of give us maybe a broader overview of what Last Stand is all about.
It's about masculinity, and that's excuse me. That's something that guys, especially guys of your generation, need to learn about because you've been brought up in a feminized society. You've been taught that masculine instincts are evil. They should be suppressed, whether by drugs. What they've done to some of these kids is just disgraceful. Before we even get into the sex change operations on 4-year-olds, uh, they've basically demonized masculinity and called it toxic. So I gave a, a preview of the first chapter of the book, which is called "To Die For," at Hillsdale College, what, a year and a half ago or so, and I called it "In Praise of Toxic Masculinity" because I think toxic masculinity is in fact masculinity. Period. There's no adjective that needs to be appended to it, and that men fight, and that's really the point of the book. There is a philosophical chapter that opens, as we know, in which I quote Kant saying that war is the natural state of man and peace is the exception, which is demonstrably true. And we go from there into a historical survey of these great fights from Thermopylae, which is, of course, the original Last Stand, and all the way up to my father's experience in the Korean War, where he was at the Battle of the Chosin Reservoir.
Hey, history lovers, Dustin Bass here, and I've started a new history podcast called American Tells, where we explore the world through American history. New episodes come out every Monday and can be found wherever you listen, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. I hope you tune in and subscribe to my new podcast that presents all things pre 21st century American history through dramatic narratives, narrated by yours truly. And each episode comes standard with sound effects, awesome music, and my amazing accents, both foreign and domestic. Subscribe to American Tales with Dustin Bass today and join me as we explore the world through American history.
I realized as I was writing, and I did not know this when I pitched the book, but as I was writing it, I suddenly thought, shows you what a genius I am. Hey, holy cow, I've got a member of my own family that was in a Last Stand. Maybe I ought to talk to him about it. So I went down to Florida. He's going to be 95 years old on June 1st. So he and happy 95th birthday, Pop, and Marilyn Monroe, who was born on the same day. We always found that quite amusing when we were kids. Hey, Dad, why didn't you marry Marilyn? No, that wasn't going to happen. Uh, and he was kind enough to spend hours with me talking through the battle, kind of drew position maps, and so we're going to celebrate that on June 1st, and with some special surprises for him, and to honor his legacy, not only as our dad, but as one of the last surviving members of the Marine 2-5 who fought at the Chosin Reservoir. So that's what the book is about overall. And each chapter kind of illustrates aspects of masculinity. Uh, Alan, you just mentioned the whole story about Kane, where they found the Roman soldier with the guy's nose in his teeth. I mean, he fought right to the end, buried in the mud. And that's typical of all the men in this book. There are no women in this book, so just to not disappoint the ladies, you don't figure in this book at all. Uh, Women were not, with except with very rare exceptions. The Crusades was one of them, and the Russians in World War II were not part of any kind of combat units up until the present time. So it's each chapter reinforces the notion of what it means to be a man in terms of physicality and in terms of what are you defending, what are you fighting for. The answer turned out to be you're fighting for the guy next to you. In abstract, you're fighting for your country and duty and honor and all that stuff. Closer to home, you're fighting for your wives and your children and your family and your tribe. But when it hits the fan, you're fighting for the guy next to you, and he's fighting for you, and that's why the bond between soldiers is so tight in the field, and it has to be. And anything that disrupts that bond, such as sex, is, I believe, and so do most military historians, antithetical to the proper functioning of a combat unit. So while I'm not opposed to seeing women in the Army or the Marines or any place else, uh, the field of combat is not the place for them. And if that's a regressive, toxic attitude, I'll just have to live with it.